Egypt is about to launch a carefully choreographed political dialogue, but it follows 9 years of cracking down on dissent. Prisoner releases are supposed to happen in parallel, but critics say the process is too slow. And the once powerful but now outlawed Muslim Brotherhood is excluded. Tens of thousands of dissidents or critics have been jailed as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has consolidated his position, according to rights groups. Journalist Khalid Daoud, a senior member of the Liberal Dastur party, says he's planning to take part in the dialogue, which is expected to start in the coming weeks. But authorities need to stop making arrests and lift media restrictions.
We believe, as a civic movement and as the Dastur party, that the release of all prisoners of conscience who have not been charged with violence is what will make the national dialogue successful. So we can feel, as Egyptian citizens, that the regime is serious about opening up the political climate.
Sisi, then Armed Forces chief, removed the Brotherhood's Mohamed Morsi from power in 2013. After mass protests against his rule. Egypt then launched its most ferocious crackdown against the group, which it calls terrorist and accuses of using violent means, an accusation the Brotherhood denies. It handed down death sentences and long prison terms for its leaders and drove its members underground or abroad. Security forces gunned down hundreds of supporters at a protest camp. Acting leader Ibrahim Munir, who is in London, said the dialogue can't work without the group.
Dialogue is really needed, yes, but it has to include everyone. Excluding the Muslim Brotherhood from the dialogue, or any other groups, I believe will not lead to the required atmosphere for Egypt to rule by in the coming years.
A presidential amnesty committee is processing thousands of requests to free some of those jailed under Sisi's leadership. Egyptian officials present the dialogue as heralding a new phase of Sisi's rule, made possible by improvements in security and political stability and dubbed the New Republic. Some moderate opposition figures have been brought in from the margins and given a platform on tightly controlled domestic media for the first time in years. The dialogue follows steps, including publication of a human rights strategy that appear intended to address Western criticism.
Earlier today, I spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. We had a frank and direct conversation. I pressed the Kremlin to accept the substantial proposal that we put forth on the release of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. I urged Foreign Minister Lavrov to move forward with that proposal. I'm not going to characterize his response, and I can't give you an assessment of whether I think things are any more or less likely, but it was important that he hear directly from me on that.
I had pretty much empty feelings. I didn't feel that there was any passion of the speech being delivered. I've also could feel many of my ancestors that are children on how they must have felt when being greeted by members of the church when they were going to residential school and not being able to understand any of the words that were being said to them. His native language is Spanish, and the translation was in French, and many of us that were survivors that were brought in did not understand French.
I thought about my family and why it was the way it was. I thought about my children. I thought about the importance of saying something about what happened and how so many never got that opportunity. What I wanted to talk about was why the whole truth is important, and you don't get to pick which truth you want to talk about and which truth you don't want to talk about, because we're living the damage of all of that.
I was briefed today about the strike by the occupiers on Olenivka in the Donetsk region. It was a deliberate Russian war crime, deliberate mass killing of Ukrainian prisoners of war, more than 50 killed. When defenders of Azovstal were exiting the plant, the International Red Cross Committee and the UN became guarantors of life and health of our warriors. There should be a clear legal recognition of Russia as a state sponsoring terrorism. I'm especially turning to the United States of America. A decision is needed. It is needed now. Russia has proven by numerous terrorist acts that it is the largest source of terrorism in today's world. This is a fact. Ukrainian diplomats have brought the issue of the Russian strike on Olenivka to the highest international level. The UN Security Council is informed. All the participants of international relations will know what really happened. Russia will not succeed in fooling anyone.
U.S. stocks added to their recent rally on Friday after upbeat outlooks from Apple and Amazon, with shares of the e-commerce giant notching their best month since 2007, and the S&P 500 and Nasdaq posting their biggest monthly percentage gains in more than 2 years. The Dow ended up about 1%, the S&P 500 finished 1.4% higher, while the Nasdaq gained nearly 2%. But George Ball, chairman of Sanders Morris Harris, said the recent rally could just be a moment of exuberance.
Investors are trying to figure out if we're in a relief rally or if this is one of those traps that sprung upon people in the middle of a bear market. Today, the consensus is, all right, we're going to have a mild recession. Rates won't go as high as people fear, and therefore we are risk on and running. The bear market is over, and we're back to a much more sustained uptrend. That's what's happening today. Tomorrow or next Friday could be an entirely different circumstance. And I think that it may well be, by the way.
Shares of Apple gained more than 3% after the company said parts shortages were easing and that demand for iPhones was continuing. Amazon finished up more than 10% after it forecast a jump in third-quarter revenue from bigger fees from its Prime loyalty subscriptions. In other earnings, Chevron and ExxonMobil shares jumped after both oil giants reported their biggest quarterly earnings ever amid surging energy prices. Second-quarter results so far have mostly been stronger than expected, but shares of Intel fell 8.5% after the chipmaker slashed its annual sales and profit forecasts and missed second-quarter estimates. And shares of Procter & Gamble fell more than 6% after predicting full-year earnings below analysts' expectations.